Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here with Switch Adapted Toys, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to adapt this Mickey Mouse nightlight. We picked these up at Sam's Club. They're about $25-30, and they have a bunch of different characters. So they had a Ninja Turtle one, they had a Little Mermaid one, I think they had a Minnie Mouse one, and of course Mickey. When you hit this button in the front, Mickey spins around, sings a song, or says something, and then lights shine up through all these little cutouts in the toy and kind of project things on the ceiling. So there's also a button in the back that you can hit, and it'll just like run for 15 minutes, so kind of like a night light. But this first one here is great because you kind of get a song and dance out of the thing. And it's really great for kids that really like that kind of sensory input of the lights and the sounds and the motions. So it's a really easy toy to adapt. I'll walk you through the whole process. You don't need to worry about it. And if you like this content, please take a second and hit the like button. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out in a huge way. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start by flipping the toy upside down and removing all these screws on the bottom side. Alright, so with all those screws out, we can go ahead and remove the bottom. Now the battery and the speaker are going to be attached, so just make sure you're not going to yank any cords. So there's a little circuit board right here, right underneath the button. We need to remove these two screws that hold this circuit board in place. These screws do look like they're slightly a different size, so just make sure you set them aside and don't get them mixed up with the other screws. Alright, so here's a close-up shot of that circuit board. You can see there's actually two buttons on there. Don't let that confuse you. They do the exact same thing. And you can see that there's two white wires going to the circuit board. So we've got a couple different things that we can do in order to adapt this toy. The first thing we could do, and it's probably the easiest option, is just to take some snips and snip these wires off kind of close to this board here, and then we could solder our headphone jack wires to these white wires. So one wire from your headphone jack would go to each of these. That is a totally valid way of doing things. The only downside of doing that is that you will lose the functionality of actually pressing the button on the toy and operating the toy that way. It'll still work with your your external switch, but you will lose that button on the toy. The other option is that we could just solder our headphone jack wires directly to where these wires are connected on the circuit board. So just basically adding a little bit of solder and just attaching them right here. That would then maintain the functionality of the toy, but allow us to also control it using our external switch. So they're both valid ways of doing things. I'm going to show you how to solder to this board. That way we don't lose any of the functionality. But it's really easy, regardless of which way you go. You can totally do it. So that's our plan, and let's get to it. First thing that we need to do is prep our headphone jack wire. So if you've ever watched one of our videos, you've probably seen us do this before, but we'll go over it again. So this is our headphone jack wire. This came as a splitter, so there was actually another cord connected to this. But with the splitters, you actually get two headphone jacks. So this is just one of them. First thing that we need to do is strip off the external casing. So all these headphone jack wires are going to be slightly different, but the process of what we do to get them all set up is exactly the same. So you can see I stripped these wires down. I got the external casing off. So you can see I've got a bunch of bare copper wires. I actually stripped off the casing of the sleeve inside, but that's totally fine because it's actually what I needed to do anyways. So I've got a bare copper wires here. I've got this red wire and I've got this white wire. Now I'm gonna have to trim these down a little bit because I took a little bit too much off, which is totally fine. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the red wire and these bare copper wires. This is a headphone jack wire we got at Walmart, and if you got this one, the bare copper wires would actually be in a yellow casing sleeve. But basically, for most of these things, you're going to want to keep the white wires separate and combine the other two wires. That's not going to be the case in all of them, so you will need to just verify that kind of before you solder everything together. But for most cases, you're going to be keeping the white wire separate. Now I'm just going to snip off a little bit of this. I've got a lot of extra wire here. I'm just going to snip those off just so that they're both kind of even in length. Now, this is all good to go, except for the fact that I've got a bunch of exposed wire here that I need to protect with a heat shrink wire cover. That way that this wire doesn't accidentally like short something out in the toy. So I got my heat shrink wire cover. I'm just going to cut it to length. And then I'll just slip it over the wire. And then I'll use a heat gun to heat this wire cover up, shrink it down, and protect those wires. Alright, so this is good to go. Next, we need to bring our toy back in, and we need to identify where we're going to drill a hole so that we can get this headphone jack wire into the toy. So it looks like there's plenty of space to drill a hole right here next to where the button is. So we're just going to drill a hole right through there, and that will allow us to get this guy in there. So I've got a drill bit that's just the same diameter of the headphone jack wire, and I'm just going to drill a hole right through the toy. So now that I got my hole drilled, I can go ahead and fish my wire through the hole. Alright, now the next thing we want to do is we want to put a zip tie on the inside of the toy. That will just kind of act like a barrier, so if someone were to try to pull out this wire, the zip tie will kind of keep it from getting all yanked out. So just tie a zip tie as tight as you possibly can on the inside, and give it a good tug and make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. Then you can go ahead and snip off any extra zip tie. Alright, so I kind of got everything set up here, ready to go. The first thing that I always like to do is I like to get a little bit of solder on the wires. I just find that that helps me when I go to actually get it on the circuit board. As soon as my soldering iron heats up, I'm going to put a little solder on my wires. Just like that. Alright, now I can go ahead and solder it to the board. So all I'm going to do is just attach one wire to each of these little dots, these little nodes where the white wires are already hooked up. Alright, so now that we've got everything soldered, it's a good idea to test it just to make sure that everything works before you go ahead and screw everything back together. So I've got the power turned on, I've got my button plugged in, and I'm just going to hold it by kind of this blue base because when I hit the button, Mickey Mouse is going to want to spin around, and I don't want him kind of tangling things up and disconnecting any of the wires that we just soldered. So with that, I'm going to hit the button and let's see if everything works.
You are one great friend, and this sure is fun.
Alright, so everything worked great, and so we should be good to go ahead and put everything back together, and then we'll give it one final test, but then we should be good to go. Alright, so my button came out while I was working, so I'm just going to make sure I get that put back in, and then the circuit board goes on top, and then you can go ahead and screw that circuit board back on, making sure that you're not pinching any of your wires. And remember that these are those tiny screws that we took out earlier. So before I go and screw everything back together, it's probably a good idea to test the actual button on the toy to make sure that that still works. So here we go.
I can't wait to tell our friends about all our adventures. See you real soon. Woohoo!
There we go. So we should be good to go ahead and screw everything back together. Alright, so we got everything put back together. Now it's time just to make sure we didn't screw anything up when we were putting it all back together. So I'm going to give the button a press just to make sure. And if so, we are done.
Well, hiya, pal. What adventure are we going on today?
Alright, so that's it. Thanks for checking out this video. If you liked this video or if you found it helpful in any way, please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe. It'll keep you up to date on all our latest toy builds. And if you've got a toy that you're just been dying for us to adapt, you think it'd be really good for your child, leave it in the comments below. We'll check that out and see if there's something that we can do. If you would like to find out more about Switch Adapted Toys, you can do so on our website at www.switchtoys.org, and I'll put that in the description below. And if you've got a group or an organization and you want to serve your community by building these toys and giving them out to kids in need, we've got a ton of resources on our website. You can form what's called a Switch chapter, and we kind of help you walk you through that process. And if this just isn't your cup of tea, your child really wants one of these toys, you think it'd be great for them, but you just don't have the tools or the time or the knowledge or whatever, we do sell them on our Etsy store. So I'll put a link below in the description. All the proceeds there basically go to help us further our mission of making play possible. So you can pick up a pre-adapted toy there. So thanks for checking out this video. My name's Eric with Switch Adapted Toys. Till next time, see ya.
Switch Adapted Toys, making play possible.